You know what's one thing that I really appreciate that and about taking control, and it's one thing that I think personally that I've been working on is like pushing back reaction a beat or two beats and like acknowledging the emotion that I'm feeling as it's coming in and figuring out like, okay, I'm feeling this before you're feeling it, because there's this kind of like, you know, there's like a timeline of events and there's a timeline of circumstances. And if someone cuts you off, your initial thing is to scream and beep and swear and whatever. And then you're like, well, we don't know what happened to that. Like, I have no idea what that guy's going through or whatever. Or maybe maybe his wife's in labor and he's trying to get there. Like, you know, and there's those things that happen to us throughout the entire day where maybe upbringing was kind of like, yeah, everyone's out to get you. And you kind of have this, you know, preconceived chatter that's like, don't trust anyone. You're always the victim, blah, blah, blah. But then you kind of have to So what I'm realizing is that we're in this marathon of life that's filled with self-criticism and self-anxiety. The faster I can acknowledge how I'm feeling before reacting to how I'm feeling is a huge, I feel that's like a very important step.
Again, this is another time when, you know, modern science is bearing this out, but the ancients, you know, got this right. One of my favorite Buddhist parables is the parable of the second arrow. I don't know if you all know this. So Buddha's talking to his disciples and he's like, hey, if you're walking down a street and somebody shoots you with an arrow, you know, is that bad? Do you feel bad? And all his disciples are like, yeah, that would suck to get shot with an arrow, like out of nowhere, right? And so Buddha's like, okay, if you're walking down the street, you get hit with that first arrow and then you get shot with a second arrow. Like, is that worse? And people are like, yeah, that would, you know, suck twice as much if it was 2 arrows. And so Buddha says, you know, the first arrow is, you know, just the stuff in life, right? The suffering of life that we can't control. Somebody cuts you off, you get sick, there's a pandemic. Like, we can't control that. But the second arrow is usually our reaction to it. Like, somebody cuts you off and you get pissed off and now you're mad and then you say something mean to your wife and then she's mad or you like slam the car into them. Or like it's a global pandemic and I, you know, freak out and I'm mad and I get depressed and I, you know, piss my kids off for 18 months, right? Like, that's our reaction to it. And usually the second arrow is worse, right? And it's completely under our control, right? Like, with the right strategies, we don't have to kind of stab ourselves with the second arrow. And that parable for me has been like huge. Actually, there's like, you know, the little emoji of arrows. And sometimes I'll be like, you know, I don't know, like my assistant does something that I, you know, I'm like mad about. And then, you know, I'm like complaining about it and it's ruining my whole day. And my, you know, my podcast producer, because he's nice like this, will just send me like a picture of 2 emojis of arrows. And I'm like, okay, right. Yes, I don't need to, you know.